This is part 2 of how to increase your closing ratio. Now, when I was new to the direct sales business back in the 80s, I was a very hard worker. I'd go out there and be willing to visit with 8, 9, 10 prospects on a daily basis, right? Now, I was sometimes a little bit frustrated with the fact that there are some individuals working half as much as I was doing and getting 2 or 3 times the sales results. So as I started to investigate into their secret, here is what I have found out. I'm going to share that with you in just a moment. Hi, this is Ramez Helou. I'm the founder and keynote speaker of the Academy for Sales Excellence, where I simply speak at events, conferences to inspire, educate, and motivate sales teams to sell more, faster, and profitably. So what was the secret to help those individuals sell more than what I was selling? Well, here it is. Number 1 is it was about seeing qualified prospects. Number 2, it's about talking with the right people inside the prospect. So let me give you the story. So as you know, I sold kitchen cutlery, kitchen knives in people's homes. Now you think about what's an ideal prospect that would buy knives? Well, there was a certain demographics that would represent the ideal prospect. Usually there'd be people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. Not necessarily newly married, because they still need to spend lots of money on buying different things. People that are married would be ideal prospects. People that have kids. Now, kids at home, because that means they'll use more of the products to cook with them, right? As opposed to kids that are out of the home, and there's an empty nest there with the couple. So of course, income is important. So people that are earning over $50,000 and $60,000 would be a bare minimum that then they can have a little bit of discretionary income or extra income to spend on the product. And of course, if they made more than $100,000, then that got them an additional point as well. Now, those were 5 different criteria that I just mentioned. So the age, the married, children at home, over 50, 60,000 or over 100,000. If a prospect had 5 of these criteria, the more of the criteria they had, well, guess what? The more likely it was that they were going to buy. Now, does that mean that somebody who's maybe 30, 31, single isn't going to buy? No, there are some people that would love to cook and they'd buy knives, you know. However, that was the exception. It wasn't the rule. All right, so you just gotta, bear with me on this concept. Now, the other thing I said was you gotta talk with the right person. So sometimes I'll be sitting with the husband, okay, and then he'd say, well, of course I gotta check with my wife. So why wasn't the wife there with him in the first place? You know, and sometimes I'm with the wife and she's like, well, I gotta check with my husband. Now, it wasn't just about budget. Sometimes they might say something like, well, my husband is the one that takes care of the kitchen. It's like, oh, darn it, why didn't I think of that before? So, of course, that meant I spent more time visiting more clients and I wasn't as effective. So, one of the things that I used to do is, as I'm making appointments with clients, and you can do the same, and I taught this to thousands and thousands of students that I trained in the direct sales business, is to simply ask their prospects. So, for example, Mrs. Rodriguez or Mrs. Jones, as I mentioned, there is no obligation of buying anything. Now, by the way, in many occasions, many of my customers, when they see something, they saw things they liked and they ended up getting them. Now, if you find something that you like, would you be in a position to make a decision by yourself, or you prefer to have your husband or wife be there with you? And if they said, no, I'd make that decision myself, well, pretty much that was a green light. If they said, no, I'd rather him or her be there with me, then the answer was, well, that's fantastic. Great that you mentioned that. Would it be okay to set up a time where he or she would be available? And then, or what we did was simply reschedule a time where both husband and wife were available. Now, if you are in B2B selling, the same pretty much applies. You gotta have certain demographics and even add a bit of psychographics, where you understand who is the decision maker, what are the ways that they make decisions based on what are some of the, for example, ways that business would be buying, so that you're able to apply both demographic and psychographic to your ideal customer profile. So that's basically it. It's all about really sharpening the saw, and basically, you know, in the old days there was a saying that says, you know, shoot and aim, but it's all about aiming before shooting, right? We're not shooting or throwing any knives at anybody in here. However, again, if I'm going to spend time in front of a client, then, and if we only have a certain minimum amount of time, limited amount of time, then might as well make the most out of it for your clients as well as for yourself. So until next time, sell more, faster, and profitably.